Imagine a world where the maps are all filled in, where every corner of our planet has been poked, prodded, and catalogued by satellites. We feel a sense of absolute certainty that we are the masters of this domain and that nothing large could possibly remain hidden from us. But nature has a way of reminding us that our perspective is limited by the very tools we use to observe it. Deep within the most remote wildernesses, stories persist of something that doesn't fit into our neat biological boxes or our digital archives. These are the legends of the lost megafauna, creatures like the Yeti or the Sasquatch that exist in the peripheral vision of our collective consciousness. For centuries, across different cultures and continents, humans have described giant, bipedal hominids living in the shadows of mountains and the depths of forests. In the Himalayas, the Sherpa people tell of the Meitei, a creature of the high snows that commands respect and invokes a primal fear. In the Pacific Northwest, indigenous oral histories speak of the Sasquatch, a being that is as much a part of the forest as the trees. These stories aren't just campfire tales. They are consistent, detailed accounts that have survived the transition from ancient oral tradition to the digital age. Why do we keep seeing things that science tells us shouldn't be there? And why do these patterns repeat across vastly different environments? Perhaps it's because the human brain is hardwired to find patterns in the chaos, to see a face in the leaves or a predator in the dark. Or perhaps it's because our ancestors actually shared the earth with other versions of ourselves, cousins in the great ape family tree that left a mark. Tens of thousands of years ago, the world was a much more crowded place, shared by Neanderthals, Denisovans, and the towering Gigantopithecus blacki. Gigantopithecus was the largest primate to ever walk the earth, standing nearly 3 meters tall and weighing as much as an adult polar bear. We know they existed because we have found their teeth and jawbones in caves across Southeast Asia dating back hundreds of thousands of years. Fossil evidence suggests they lived in bamboo forests, perhaps filling a niche similar to a giant ground sloth or a massive terrestrial orangutan. Then, roughly 300,000 years ago, the fossil record for these giants suddenly goes silent, leaving us to wonder where they went. Did they truly vanish into the void of extinction, or did they retreat into the few remaining places where humans couldn't follow? This is the intersection of cryptozoology and paleoanthropology, where the ghosts of our past meet the mysteries of our present. To understand if something is truly out there, we have to look past the blurry photos and dive into the cold, hard reality of biology. To solve a mystery of this magnitude, we must move beyond hearsay and examine the physical world through the lens of modern genetics. In 2014, a team led by Professor Brian Sykes from Oxford University decided to put the legends to a rigorous genetic test. They called for samples of hair and fur from around the world that were claimed to belong to anomalous primates or hominids. They received dozens of specimens from museum archives and private collections, ranging from the high Himalayas to the deep American South. Using mitochondrial DNA sequencing, the researchers compared these mystery samples against the known genomes of thousands of existing animal species. The results were a masterclass in the mundane, revealing a collection of hairs from cows, horses, raccoons, and even a few humans. However, 2 samples from the Himalayas provided a momentary jolt of excitement for the scientific community and the public alike. These golden brown hairs matched a DNA sequence from a prehistoric polar bear jawbone found in the high Arctic, dating back 40,000 years. This suggested that a forgotten hybrid species of bear might be roaming the mountains, perhaps giving rise to the Yeti myth. But as is often the case in science, further peer-reviewed studies suggested the match was likely a rare subspecies of the brown bear. This highlights the filter of reality, where the more we look for the extraordinary, the more we find the hidden complexity of the ordinary. Another significant hurdle for the existence of hidden giants is the concept of a minimum viable population required for survival. For a species to persist for thousands of years, there must be enough individuals to maintain genetic health and avoid the trap of inbreeding. A solitary monster is a biological impossibility. If one Sasquatch exists, there must be thousands, and they must eat a staggering amount of food. Ecologists use the Kleiber law to estimate that a 300 kilogram primate would need roughly 5,000 to 8,000 calories every single day. In the lean winter months of the Pacific Northwest or the frozen peaks of Tibet, finding that much energy is a full-time job. Furthermore, large mammals leave a massive ecological footprint. They break branches, leave scat, and most importantly, they eventually die. In the acidic soil of a rainforest or the shifting glaciers of a mountain, bones can dissolve or be buried, but not forever. We have found the remains of tiny rodents and ancient insects, yet a graveyard for the world's largest primates remains undiscovered. This lack of physical evidence leads us to a difficult question. Are we hunting a physical animal or a shadow in our own minds? If the physical evidence is so thin, why does the conviction that these creatures exist remain so thick in our culture? Psychologists point to a phenomenon called pareidolia, where the brain's pattern recognition software works too well for its own good. We evolved to see predators in the tall grass. A false positive might make you jump, but a false negative could be fatal. In a dark forest, a vertical tree stump with the right lighting can instantly become a massive, lurking figure to a stressed mind. But there is another layer to this mystery that science is only just beginning to explore: the concept of environmental DNA, or eDNA. Scientists can now sequence the genetic material left behind in the water, soil, and air by every living thing in an area. In Loch Ness, eDNA surveys found plenty of eels, but no plesiosaurs. Yet the same technology could be used in the deep wilderness. If a large, unknown primate were drinking from a mountain stream, it would leave a microscopic trail of its entire existence. So far, these high-tech genetic vacuum cleaners have returned many surprises, but none that rewrite the book on primate evolution. We must also consider the mapinguari of the Amazon, described as a giant, red-furred beast with a second mouth on its belly. For years, researchers thought this was pure myth, until they looked at the fossil record of the Megatherium, the giant ground sloth. These 3-ton titans lived alongside early humans in South America, and the descriptions in folklore match their physical traits almost perfectly. This suggests that some monsters are actually cultural memories, ghosts of species we once knew, preserved in the amber of our stories. However, even if the memory is real, the living creature faces the harsh reality of the 21st century Anthropocene landscape. Our cities, roads, and farmlands have carved the world into isolated islands of nature, leaving less and less room for giants. A creature the size of a Sasquatch would need a massive, contiguous territory to survive, far away from the prying eyes of drones. Today, heat-sensing cameras and high-resolution satellites monitor the pulse of the planet, making it harder for anything to stay invisible. If they are out there, they have mastered the art of evasion better than any special forces unit in human history. Yet, every year, new species are discovered, mostly small things like frogs or beetles, but occasionally something large and startling. In 1992, the saola, a large bovid, was discovered in Vietnam, proving that the world can still keep a secret if it tries. The discovery of the saola reminds us that the known world is a moving target, and our knowledge is always incomplete. If a large creature like the saola could hide until the late 20th century, what else might be lingering in the unmapped valleys? But there is a profound difference between a rare deer and a massive, intelligent primate that shares our DNA and our curiosity. This brings us to the most unsettling possibility, that we are not looking for an animal, but for a reflection of ourselves. Humans have an ancient, deep-seated need to believe that we are not alone on this planet, that there is something bigger out there. Our myths of wild men and forest giants act as a bridge between the clinical world of science and the untamed world of the soul. They represent the part of nature that refuses to be tamed, the part that remains wild, unpredictable, and slightly dangerous. If we were to find a living Gigantopithecus tomorrow, it would be the greatest scientific discovery in the history of our species. But it would also be a tragedy. The mystery would be over, replaced by GPS collars, blood tests, and habitat management plans. Perhaps the value of the Yeti or the Sasquatch isn't in their physical existence, but in the questions they force us to ask. They ask us how much of the world we are willing to leave untouched, and how much of the unknown we can tolerate. As we push deeper into the mountains and clear-cut the last of the old-growth forests, we aren't just losing trees and animals. We are losing the spaces where our imagination can breathe, where the what-if is still more powerful than the what-is. The silence from our cameras and our DNA sequencers is a loud reminder of our responsibility to the life we times do times know. We live on a planet that is 4.5 billion years old, a tiny blue marble in a vast, indifferent, and mostly empty cosmos. In that context, the idea of a giant ape hiding in the woods isn't just a fun story, it's a testament to our wonder. Science will continue to search, to drill into the ice, to sequence the soil, and to watch the forests from the stars above. And as long as there is one valley left unvisited or one cave left unexplored, the legend will continue to walk beside us. So, is there something out there? The evidence says probably not, but our hearts and our history aren't quite ready to agree. In a world that is becoming increasingly small and predictable, maybe the best thing we can do is keep a little room for the shadows.